And welcome back. The last video you saw that we had removed our front timing components, oil pan and pickup tube and oil pump and so on and so forth. We're going to continue with removing the final couple of pieces that we intend on replacing. We're going to start next with the lifters and prep for getting the camshaft removed. The lifters, as you can see, we went ahead and removed one of them on the passenger side here already. There's a bolt in the center, and it's easier to show you on the set that we took out. There's a captive 8mm bolt in the center of basically this holder. And this holder holds the lifters in place, and then you slide it in as one assembly and you tighten this 8mm bolt, or loosen in our case. Now I will say that I did mark these, and I'll mark the remainder again in case we were to need to reuse this. Then I want to make sure that this goes back into the same position and same location that we took it out of, to include the lifters themselves, because remember, this engine is equipped with MDS. Now, we're not going to be using the MDS going forward after the updates, but you'll notice two of these lifters have holes in them, and the other two do not. The ones with the holes are your MDS lifters. So we want to make sure that in the event that we have to reuse this, or we want to return this engine back to stock, that we put that the lifters are in the correct spots that we took them out of. Not to mention also that, the same thing even goes even without the MDS lifters. If you're going to reuse these lifters with the camshaft that's in it, then you want to make sure that even these lifters stay in the same spots they're in. And again, I believe and I could be wrong about this, but I believe the cautionary tale there is those parts have worn together, and like we've said with the other parts of doing this uninstall, that those parts are married together, so we want to make sure that we keep that marriage together going forward should we need to reuse these pieces. So we're going to continue with just taking those lifters out. Again, it's a 8mm captive bolt. You just break this loose, and once you have it loosened, in our case, we were able just to grab the whole holder and pull all four lifters out at once. Now, I'll give you a word of caution, and you'll notice that we've put our oil pan back in place on the passenger side here. When I pulled that first group of lifters out, a nice little stream of oil poured out of those lifter valleys and onto the ground. And we've got a piece of cardboard here, and the concrete's coated, so no biggie, but in case you're doing this in your driveway or something along that nature, you might want to make sure you've got some cardboard or something underneath the engine, because apparently pulling those out will cause some residual oil in those lifter valleys to come kind of pouring out on the ground. We're gonna go ahead and continue getting those lifters out. When we get those lifters out, we'll bring back. And welcome back. I thought it might be interesting to actually see one of these lifter holders and sets of lifters come out of these bores. We've already got the 8mm bolt loosened, and remember, that's just it's a captive bolt. So once you've had it backed out to where it's touching the little fingers that hold it in place, you're good. I'm going to try and get you in here where you can see this come out. Generally, what I like to do is just kind of grab the holder by the edge here and just kind of start pulling it forward. Now, in this case, you'll see that our holder, one lifter came out with the holder, which is fine. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you take the rest of those lifters out and put them in the correct spots of the holder that you're dealing with. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to place this upright in the center of our engine. Forgive the camera work, I'm just grabbing a rag here. So we still have a lifter in this bore. So let's get this guy out. There we go. And that's an MDS lifter. You can tell by the hole that's in it. And we got a lifter in this bore. And then finally, a lifter in this bore. And you may be able to hear that dripping underneath now. You can hear it hit. You can hear it hitting the oil pan that we put underneath, because again, once you kind of crack the seal and you get air into those lifter valleys, you're going to have a little puddle of oil that kind of comes out with each one of these. So again, just making sure that we've got the ones that are MDS lifters back into the right spots versus the ones that aren't. Again, we're not going to be reusing these lifters or this holder, as we stated earlier, but just in the case that we do, we just want to make sure we get them in the correct locations if we have to reinstall. But as you can see there, getting these out aren't too difficult. Again, as you saw, you might get the holder out before you get the lifters out, which is fine, but as you saw, you can just kind of reach in there and grab the lifters and pull them out. And like I said, it is a machine, fit. So, they do just grab and kind of pull out of the boards pretty easily. But if you cock them to the side just a hair a little bit, then you're going to feel some resistance. So again, just go easy with it, then they'll pull out of those boards pretty easily. I'm actually going to climb out of the engine compartment here. There, okay. Again, sorry for all the camera work, but I kind of have to hold a GoPro and crawl in and out of this engine compartment. So we've got one more set of lifters to get out of there, which we will do now. And then once we get those out, we'll work on getting that thrust plate out of there and get the camshaft out of here. I'm going to go put these lifters up. I'll get that last set out, and then I'll bring you back. Thank you much. And welcome back. Getting ready to remove the thrust plate cover in order to start working on getting the camshaft out. And it's coming up as a T30, so a Torx 30-bit. These weren't in there excessively tight. I was able to break them all loose with just using a standard T30 bit on a 3/8 ratchet. Just make sure that since these are Torx bits, that you just keep a steady hand on the ratchet, because you don't want to strip one of these out inadvertently, because it'll make for a bad day, and then you'll be trying to drill that out. Now on mine, what I discovered was that the bottom ones were pretty much loose. I was able to get a bit on there and just kind of spin them right away. They didn't really crack loose all that much. Now the top ones, they did make a noticeable sound, like a typical torqued down fastener would when you break them loose. So, I'll look into that, because it could very well be that these didn't get torqued properly from the factory. I mean, we'll find out. Obviously, it didn't cause an issue to now. But I just wanted to point that out, that those are Torx. Just take your time with it. Make sure that you've got the ratchet, firmly seated before you go breaking those loose. Because again, you just don't want to round one out. But I'm going to proceed forward with getting this plate out, and then we'll bring you back when we're ready to start pulling the cam out. Talk to you in a bit. And welcome back. So we have our thrust plate off, and just so that you know, all four of those Torx bits were all the same size bolt, so no worries about whether the tops and bottoms were longer than the other, or at least in this application. So what you see here now is that we just took the bolt for the phaser and threaded it back in the camshaft a pretty good number of turns, just to make sure that we had a nice solid bite into there, just to help us guide that camshaft out. So according to the instructions, what they want you to do is kind of pull forward and rotate the camshaft. Just take your time, go slow with it, and kind of turn it as you get it out, just to make sure you can clear all the cam journal bearings. So that way, basically, you're wanting to avoid scratching them or causing any kind of damage. So I've got you propped up in the tripod here, wedged into some stuff to hold you steady, and it looks like we've got a good shot of the cam there. So I'm hoping I can make this a live action shot, and we can pull this out in real time, because this is going to be one of our major prizes to getting this out. But I'm gonna cut the video here, go off and get one more item, and then come back, and then we'll continue. So forgive the jump in the video here real quick. And welcome back. So I wanted to get you plugged in so the battery didn't die, and I apologize because you will see that the camshaft is partially out. I wanted to try to get a video of doing this from the beginning, but I did run into a slight issue, and I have a piece of hair there. Just trying to get that out of there. Yeah, it's a piece of cat hair. That's what happens when you have a bunch of cats. So I wanted to show you what I was running into just getting the camshaft to get started to kind of come out of that initial seat. You'll see that I did put the phaser back on it, and the reason why I did that, I just snugged the phaser back on because it gave me something to grip to, because using just the bolt works, but the issue I was finding into, since everything's covered with oil, it was hard to get a grip on the camshaft to kind of turn it from side to side to get it freed out of its slumber. So it just gave me the extra leverage to kind of, you know, be able to turn the camshaft until it finally got into that sweet spot that it popped out where you see it here. Now, it's probably not a good practice of me just to kind of leave it laying there, and I apologize. So again, don't do what I do. This is just instructional, but I wanted to bring you back and show you this. I'm going to continue working on getting this camshaft out of here. And then we'll go from there. I may try to film this from start to finish, depending on how bad that it looks. If it looks bad, obviously I won't include it, because again, I'm not a master mechanic in it, and I don't want somebody seeing my video thinking, oh, that's the way you're supposed to do it. But what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to continue working on getting this out of here. I'm going to cut the camera and start it up again and videotape it, and if it looks like it's reasonably well enough to get this out of here, I'll include the footage. If not, I'll just bring it back and show you that it's out. But I will say, getting it out to where it initially got this far, it was a bit tough to kind of, again, rock that camshaft back and forth and kind of get it lined up to where it would finally release. And that's the reason, again, that's the reason why I put the phaser back on it, so I just had something I could grab a hold of rather than just the bolt, because the actual cam removal tools usually give you like a square handle that you can kind of hold on to. But like I said, I'm going to cut the video here. I'm going to restart it, and if, you know, what's in the second part of the video looks to be interesting, I'll include it. If not, I'll just bring it back. I'll talk to you in a bit. Okay, that looks like that got it. Beautiful. Don't see any markings. Well, let's get this on the bench and take a look. And welcome back. So as you saw in the last clip, which it looked good, so I'll include it, is we've got the rest of our cam out. And what in a sense that you're fighting when you're getting this cam out, I shouldn't say fighting, but one of the resistance points you're going to be going through is that you'll see that you've got a rear bearing here, and you've got the support bearings here, here, and here, as well as here at the end of the camshaft. So as you're pulling this out, and I think one of the issues I ran into early on, which is why I had to put the phaser on here just to kind of grip it, was getting this to release itself from that rear support bearing, because it's been in there for 36,000 miles. It's it's going to have oil in it, and as a result of having oil in it, that's going to be, I don't want to say kind of a vacuum fit, but it'll be kind of like a suction type effect on that rear bearing, kind of wanting to hold on to it. So when you're able to finally get it to break free, and as you're guiding the rest of the camshaft, what you're turning the camshaft to do is to, as these come out of like the center bearing, and now you have this big opening. If you can picture it this way, like if that's your support piece, like you've got your bearing here and you got your support, you pulled your camshaft forward, and now you've got this big opening here, is that you're picking up slightly on the camshaft to get these lobes which stick out to go through that center circle. Because remember, it would normally be supported here and 3 other places and be held in the engine block like this. You're pulling this camshaft forward, which means you're pulling this smaller section with these lobes that are sticking out through this area. And that's what you're doing. You're picking up on that camshaft to bring it through that area, but you also want to make sure that you don't hit that bearing against these nice sharp edges on these lobes and scratching up that bearing surface. Like I said, it was a bit intimidating, I'm not gonna lie, but just again slowly working through it, as you saw me do there in the video. It was able to get this guy out of here. Now what I'm just doing right now is I'm just looking over any of these lobes for any signs of again, we're not going to be reusing this camshaft, but I'm just curious if there's any signs of any kind of hardening that may be starting to fail. And I mean, I'm seeing some marks on here that look to be just normal, where the roller lifter is contacting the lobes. I'm not really seeing any pitting on these lobes. And I did a quick check of the lifters, and I didn't see any of the lifters that were loose or the needle bearings started to fail. The only thing I see, and maybe you can see it in the camera here, is that you can see kind of a scratch mark going across this lobe that goes all the way from, pretty much all the way around it. Now, I can run my fingernail over it and I can't catch it. So that's, it still feels smooth. It's not a groove where you can catch with your fingernail, so it feels fine. You can still see some of the original, looks to be like gray assembly goop that's still in there. But yeah, I'm not seeing any issues with this cam. Yeah, it's used. It's got about 36,000 miles on it, but it looks like you could just slide it into another engine that needed a 6.4 cam and keep going. But with that being said, we've got our prizes for today. We've got our lifters out. We've got our cam obviously out, as you can see at this point. So next steps, when we bring you back for the next video, is going to be basically just starting to do a reassembly. What we're going to start with is I'm going to take the new phaser that'll go with the new cam, and we're going to install the comp cam's phase limiter kit into it. Once we have that done, we'll go ahead and see about getting the new cam installed, which is basically the same as the reverse of the install, I should say. But we're going to thoroughly lube the snot out of the new cam when we go to put it in, because it'll be a while yet once we get everything installed before we do the first fire up, and I definitely do not want our new cam starting up dry in any way, shape, or form. But I'm going to cut the video here now that we've got that taken care of, so it'll be a relatively smaller video for a change. And then when we start doing some of the reassembly process, we'll bring you back for the next one. Thank you much. Bye.